Good afternoon. Welcome. This is the Marion City Council work session for Tuesday, August 20th, 2019. Thank you for joining us. We have a couple items marked on page 1 of the agenda for discussion. If there's anything else prior to that, I guess those are items that really don't need discussion. So we'll start with a presentation, which is item number 1 on Tower Terrace Road Corridor Management Plan Update.
Hi there. Kasia Billings, Associate Planner here with the City. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce Hillary Hirschner and Liz Darnell with the Corridor MPO, Corridor Metropolitan Planning Organization. They are the seers of the federal funds through our organization, and staff of 4 for the CMPO. They are also the overseers of the Tower Terrace Road Corridor Management Plan Update. And so Hillary and Liz are going to give you a nice overview of that and let you know where we're standing today and this year on this progress.
Thank you.
And then I think later in the agenda there'll also be action to approve of the document as well, just so the council's aware.
That's on Thursday's agenda.
Yep.
The vote is on Thursday. Yeah, okay. So welcome.
Hello, I'm Hillary Hirschner. Nice to be here, Council and Mayor. Good to see everyone.
To have you here. Thank you.
So I'm here to talk about the Tower Terrace Road Corridor Management Plan update. So a little bit of project background. The original Tower Terrace Road Corridor Management Plan was updated in March of 2010. Oh, I need to do the thing, don't I? Here we go. So the original plan was updated in March of 2010, and last year staff realized it had been almost a decade since this plan had been updated. So we decided that we needed to go out and get this updated now and basically make it more of a robust implementation plan. So what we needed to do was have a plan that came up with limits for environmental review. We needed to phase project into smaller bite-sized pieces. We needed to develop some conceptual plans and cost estimates for projects. We needed to assign priority to these projects. We needed to also identify funding sources, and we just needed to develop an implementation schedule as well for the corridor. So as I noted, the 2019 plan that we're bringing here today is an update to the 2010 plan. So the 2010 plan and this plan, the 2019 plan kind of builds upon the 2010 plan. But there are some key changes, one being the vision statement in the original plan did not include the word multimodal, whereas it does now in this 2019 update. Additionally, the old plan, the one in 2010, included bike lanes in the final build where there's 2 lanes in each direction, whereas this update takes away those bike lanes at the full build, but has them in the initial build. And then another key change was that there would be trail on both sides, 10-foot trail on both sides of the roadway. So we started this process in 2018, and we had a selection committee choose Anderson Bogert with HDR as a sub-consultant for the project. So we did some research and data collection, met with our advisory groups to go over goals and design elements and things. And then last October, we had an open house at Hiawatha City Hall. And it was very well attended, 250, 300 people in attendance there going over the plan. So we did that, had the public information meeting, had the fourth advisory group meeting, 4th and final, and then the plan was completed and our policy board adopted it. So as I've been referring, we have an initial build and a future build, cross sections for the plan. So this initial build shows a 120-foot right-of-way from one end to the other end. And the median is quite large at approximately 28 feet wide. And this Then the roadway is 20 foot wide with 11-foot travel lanes and 5-foot bike lanes for a total of 20 foot. That also allows for emergency vehicles to go through that area. So that is the initial build, the proposal for the initial build. Then we also looked at utilities in the plan. This view just kind of gives you an idea of where you could tuck in utilities and things into the corridor. New sections of Tower Terrace Road, there are opportunities to put your utilities and things in there. And we also addressed in the plan the existing utilities and impacts with that. Then the future build, final build of the Tower Terrace Road has 2 travel lanes in each direction. So as I noted before, the right-of-way is 120 feet, so that stays the same in the initial build and the future build, but the difference is the median. So in the first one it was 28 feet, and here it is 16 feet. So instead of building out and having to get more right-of-way, we get all the right-of-way we need initially and then build into the median. And as I noted, the bike lanes go away in this full build, but the trails are still there to accommodate the cycling traffic, recreational users. So we also generated some design elements for this plan. One example being median plantings, whether we wanted all grass, all native species, or some mix of both. So these design elements are meant to provide continuity across the corridor, but the plan does allow for each jurisdiction to determine some of their own design elements. For instance, some of the jurisdictions would like to light from the center of the median, and others would like to light from the outside. So there is flexibility built into the plan for each jurisdiction's wants and needs with design. Did I skip? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Let's jump ahead here. So the expected completion of this roadway is in 2045, which is a long ways away. But communities in the area are looking at a build grant, a federal build grant, and they are looking at a state RISE grant to potentially move the timeline forward so it could get done before 2045. As I noted at the beginning of the presentation, we developed project phases and also environmental review phases. So in that second column where it shows a letter and then a number, the letter denotes what project environmental review phase it would be in, and then the number just denotes the project number in that phase. And then on the very left column, it notes the project priority. So we wanted to give priority to the projects that are more shovel-ready, have design in place, have funding, so that those can get out of the way to make way for some of the other projects. And then this just shows the total project cost, and it also is divided by project phase and then also jurisdiction. So total, it's approximately going to be about $94 million to get this entire roadway done and completed. This last image is kind of the implementation schedule of the plan. So this shows if the policy board were to enact a 50% policy or 80%, and this has not gone to the policy board, this is just an illustrative thing to show how long it will take to get the road done and how much funding it needs. But if we were to put 80% of our MPO TIP funds into there or our 50%, that would affect the timeline. Obviously, putting more money in at 80% would move it up quicker. So that was my brief presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Okay, thank you. Questions, comments? No questions?
I just wanted to note the link to the packet, so the link to the MPO's website, there's a link to the entire document. I think it was 168 pages.
Yes, yes,
And
it's
so
a big
it's
one.
in your packet, if anybody wants those printed, so you can peruse them with a pen and marker, I would be happy to get those for you.
And I have my contact information up there. Feel free to contact me at any time if any questions come up.
We have a question,
Oh,
Councilman
sure.
Jensen.
Quick question. You kind of raised it yourself indirectly, but has there been discussion by the CMPO to shift more dollars towards Tower Terrace, or is the dollars that are going there going to stay pretty static?
So right now, there hasn't been a policy in place that would directly set aside some money for Tower Terrace Road. What we're doing right now is funding Tower Terrace Road projects along with other projects. So that graph was basically to show if the policy board decided to make that policy of put X number of dollars towards Tower Terrace every year. But there have been no discussions thus far of doing that.
I mean, as we sit here in Marion, I'm saying, my question is always, when is Cedar Rapids going to start coming east to join up with us, because we're kind of in limbo until
Right.
we see some action to the west, so we'd love to see that.
Yep, I understand.
Thanks.
Could you talk a little bit more about the application for funding from the federal government?
The application for
Is it-
funding. The Transportation Improvement
Yes.
Program?
Yeah.
Yes. So we have an annual process every year that we call the Transportation Improvement Program. That is basically where we take our surface transportation block grant dollars for roads, but we also have some other funds as well for trails and transit. But we take these STBG funds, and our jurisdictions apply for projects, and then our policy board ultimately makes the decision who gets what money. And so every year we had been starting in October when the application is released. However, this year we're going to start in September to try and get ahead of the holidays. So it'll be, the application will be released in September, and it will be due from each member jurisdiction by mid-December, by the holidays. And then basically from December to July, we go through the TIP process. So MPO staff will go through each of the road, trail, and transit projects, and we go through them in depth. Since this is funding for construction, these projects should be a little more shovel-ready, so we want to look at design, about the funding in place, and then, you know, if there's competition for funds, if there's more requests than there are funds available, policy board will then decide how that shakes out.
And I would just add that Mayor Pro Tem and myself are on the policy board. I'm on the executive committee.
Yes.
And just thought it's good for people to know how that works.
Yes, absolutely.
so-
And so in the future, if, you know, these projects were to get into the TIP, they could receive this funding, or the policy board could create a policy that would set aside funding. But again, that has not been formally discussed.
Other questions? Yes, go ahead.
Just a quick question on the prioritization where you
Sure.
have the different legs numbered. If I know that we've already got a few sections built out, and I feel like we're moving pretty quickly, relatively speaking. Is there room to reprioritize based on development that's already going on in the community?
So a part of the update was so Marion has done obviously a lot of parts of Tower Terrace Road in the community. So we wanted to take that into account. So that was kind of incorporated into the update from the beginning, because we knew some of these updates had been done. Those pieces could be removed. We need to focus on what's left. So I know that you are doing or have completed this section from Old Winslow to from the bridge to Indian Creek. So those parts are still in here, but yeah, if they were to get done, then basically they can just go off the list and something can bump up. So we did try and take that into consideration from the beginning.
Okay, I know that Robbins has some railroad crossing issues, but they're closer to the exchange on 380, so it's definitely a balancing act.
Yes, Robbins had a couple things they wanted us to look at in particular for them. They're in a unique spot.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have another presentation on the Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority.
Of course you can't. Go ahead. We're just finding it.
Technological
momentarily.
difficulties. Steve Cooper, Marion Stormwater Coordinator. There's few terms in stormwater management that have less than like 19 syllables in them. You've got National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. Those are two parts of the Clean Water Act, and Marion is required to comply with several parts of the Clean Water Act, the NPDES and MS4. Part of those requirements are education and outreach and having a watershed assessment. And the Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority, this is Jennifer Fensel, she's the director, plays a vital role in helping Marion be in compliance with our what's called obligations to the Clean Water Act. So when it came up that they wanted to have because I'm part of the board of ICWAMA, Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority. When it came up that we were going to get a grant and we needed to have matching funding for a watershed coordinator, that's when last year I came up and we presented this as, I think it was $17,433. We budget that again for this year. We just need to get it approved. Staff is very much in favor of providing these grant funds matching for Emery Davis. He is the newly hired watershed coordinator. He's going to speak as well. So I'll let them talk, and I'm sure you'll have questions after that. But staff is in favor of approving this so that we can keep going with our obligations, as well as controlling flooding. That's another word that people don't like to use.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm Jennifer Fensel, Environmental Services Director with East Central Iowa Council of Governments. I was here, was it about a year ago, approximately, something? And so I'm just going to give a quick update. We'll introduce you to Emery Davis. And now I just need to figure out how to advance this. Oh, there we go. So as Steve said, I'm representing the Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority this evening, and I always like to start giving a little bit of context and remind ourselves just how large watersheds can get and how much influence the decisions of other jurisdictions have on us. I have no idea if this is a red thing, but does it have a little red pointer? No, of course not. Anyway, so if you can see in Lynn County, Cedar Rapids, basically the yellow-red splotchiness, that is Indian Creek Watershed. You're at the very top of the lower Cedar, which is the lighter yellow, just below the lightest blue. And so that sort of gives you a context for what's above you and what your stormwater discharge goes to. So a little bit of background. Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority is a WMA formed through a Chapter 2080 agreement. In 2010-ish, I believe, the legislature authorized the formation of WMAs. We are, I'll show you a map how many there are in Iowa, which is quite interesting, but Indian Creek was one of the first 6. And so the issues, as Steve pointed out, are largely flood-related and then water quality as well. There's no regulatory, there's no enforcement. It has the word authority in it, but don't pay attention to that. These are the WMAs that are now formed in the state of Iowa. As I said, you were one of the first 6, and now there are 26. This is just a little closer in representation of what the watershed is, and I was hoping that the previous folks would stay around a little bit because I wanted to ask them a question. Tower Terrace Road Project basically intersects the entire Indian Creek watershed. And so it's a very significant project and will have impact on the watershed and the way the water drains. And so I'm hoping there's green infrastructure in there somewhere, but we'll get in touch with them and ask. I don't know that I'm going to spend a lot of time on this, other than to say that the watershed management plan that Steve was mentioning was completed in 2015. It's a 20-year watershed plan with planned 5-year updates. ECOG serves in a role of sort of administrative planning, grant writing. We were successful in a grant to the Natural Resource Conservation Service last year that got us $306,000 to hire a soil health coordinator for the Indian Creek watershed over the next 5 years. And Emery is that soil health coordinator. So I'm just going to have him talk a little bit about what he's doing, and then I'll wrap it up.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm Emery Davis, the soil health coordinator. Basically, I work with farmers and landowners to do practices that affect soil health as well as water quality, so that water quality comes from soil health as well. So that mitigates the nitrate issues as well as the quantity issues of flooding. So as part of that, I do outreach events like this one that we held out at the Marion Airport. We had a spray plane there as well as a grain drill. Those are the two most common ways to plant cover crops, which is a great practice to reduce erosion as well as hold excess nutrients in the field. And I think that's the first time we've had an airplane come to a cover crop day, so that's kind of exciting for us. We had kids there. It was very well attended. About 60 folks came. We had farmers, landowners, folks from the co-op that sell seed. We also had Iowa Learning Farms as well as Iowa State Extension there. This is a demonstration that shows how different land use practices affect the water leaving. So on the very left-hand side, you can see that's a conventionally tilled field. And you can see there's a lot more water in the buckets that run off, and it's also much darker. And then on the very right-hand side, you can see a field that was no-tilled with cover crops. So you can see the yellow rye residue. And then you can see there's not as much runoff, and it's pretty clear. So that's the two main practices we want to see out on the landscape. Here's another close-up. We had an aerial applicator there talking about how to fly on the cover crop. I think he can hold around 2,500 pounds of seed in that airplane. So I've been working with farmers, landowners, also with other public entities that own cropland in the watershed, working to help them with their leases to write in conservation. So I'd like to, at some point work with the city of Marion on their cropland as well. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Emery's been busy in outreach, and he's already got several projects lined up. His role mainly is to serve as that technical assistance, helping to get landowners into existing cost share programs, helping them navigate all the paperwork that has to be done in order to get some of those practices, and then just, helping spread awareness about how these practices, which are old, but now sort of new again. We've gotten away from rotation, small grains, cover crops, and those kinds of practices. And so our focus, obviously, is this big project that we have grant funding for, so the Soil Health Partnership Project, and we hope for your continued support in that. We're also focusing more on public outreach and getting the watershed plan figuring out. We are due, unbelievably, we're due for a 5-year update. And then another thing that we've been trying to work on is getting a map of repetitive flood impacts so that you can see visually where we keep having issues and where damage is occurring over and over again. And with that, I think I'll wrap it up. Ask for questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
So prior to the position for the soil health expert, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact title. How did people get assistance before education? What was done?
Well, specifically through the Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority, there wasn't a lot because there just wasn't the financial resources to have someone dedicate a significant portion of their time. Emery works for the Lynn County Soil Conservation Department, so he's actually a county employee, along with Jonathan Gallagher, whom maybe some of you know of. And John works in the USDA Service Center out on Highway 13, so, well, not exactly, but pretty close, on the east edge there. And so he and others, soil techs, is that what they're called, Henry? Soil conservationists would provide that outreach. But what's new and interesting here, and the reason I think the state Natural Resource Conservation Office wanted to fund this project, is there hasn't been a specific focus on this size of watershed just on soil health. And so I think one of the things that is always an issue is you just don't have what they call boots on the ground to get landowners and farmers to sign up for these programs. And this is what this project is supposed to, we hope, shows that focused effort does yield results.
Excellent. And then after this position, what would be the next one in line that you guys would look to add to help outreach?
Well, it would be, if we had the resources, it'd be wonderful to have just an outreach coordinator just to do education, but, I'm not sure that that level of support is in our future directly. What we hope is through this 5-year project that we show enough that the investment is worth the benefit, and that we can find local resources or other resources to continue to keep Emory on staff. I think as much awareness building and technical assistance as you can provide is probably the way we have to go. You can throw money at projects, but it's really hard if you don't have those willing landowners in line, ready, aware, and feeling like they can navigate the system in order to get that practice on the land.
Excellent. And then the last one, and this is kind of unrelated, but since there are experts in the room, there's some phenomenon going on in a lot of water with algae that is causing dogs to collapse and die within 24 hours. Do we have any issues? I know a lot of it is ag related, and or at least what I've heard in Florida and some other communities. Do we have any issues like that in Iowa reported or that are on the radar?
There are the beach closures, the beach monitoring program that the DNR runs. That is the cause of all of those advisories for no swim or beach closures. The issue is the phosphorus, and I don't want to get too technical, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the issue is the phosphorus, and it does come from fertilizers. And basically it creates a toxic algae bloom that can be fatal to dogs and not healthy for people.
So do we have, I know we obviously don't have coastline, but does it impact lakes?
It does. In fact, wasn't it, I think Lake McBride was just issued.
It was for this same
Yes.
algae bloom stuff?
Yeah. Now, that isn't in this watershed, and this watershed doesn't contribute to that.
Mm-hmm.
Your watershed drains to the Cedar River, which then goes on down to connect with the Iowa River, way down in Conesville before it gets to the Mississippi. I guess I could put my big map up. That might be helpful. So, Lake McBride is in that middle Iowa watershed, but it's the same issue. So yes, we do have that problem locally.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The questions, yes, Mr. Draper.
The only question I have, I noticed your airplane and the
Should I get that
tractors,
picture up?
which is pretty exciting. And I was reading about in California dusting with drones. Now, do you see a future here? And they're good sized and they hold a lot. And they seem to be working.
Yep, I've seen videos with automated drones going out and doing the same thing, but usually it's just at a bushel at a time. So, I suppose someday, we're already in space age, and when you get into a lot of these tractors, so it wouldn't surprise me if that was on a wide scale.
Other questions? My question is, are you involved, and if not, do you have a role to play in our city's current effort to look at how we can make Indian Creek a recreational amenity?
Yeah, I've been in touch with Todd Steigerwalt, who's kind of leading that committee. I'm scheduled at some point to be at one of their meetings and present and talk with them a little bit. And if they have project ideas that they want to flesh out or try and find funding for, I am absolutely happy to help. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, I think we would welcome that.
Yeah.
We,
I think it's wonderful. It's a great
we're big on
public-
collaboration and bringing everyone to
Yeah.
the table and having everyone contribute their ideas and solutions to issues. And if
Absolutely.
you can help with that and find grant funding,
Yep.
that would be very welcome. So thank you.
Well, I can't promise, but I definitely will always try.
Okay. All right. Well,
No.
other questions? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Okay, moving on, under the consent agenda, administrative services, there's nothing marked for discussion, but does anyone have any particular item to discuss? Yes, Ms. Gadela.
Yes, number 5, the resolution for approving city council appointed boards, commissions, committees. I feel like we should wrap ourselves as city council under those as well. I know recently we adopted the same ethics policy, but we don't follow, as these do, an attendance policy of, I think it's like 25%. But I feel that the city council should also adhere to the same, and I reviewed them, and I think, there's nothing crazy out there, but I don't know why we wouldn't also fall under the umbrella of the expectations of these other boards and committees. So just food for thought, and I don't know how much everybody looked at them, but if there's anything to add, I just felt strongly that we should ourselves, by example, be following these as well.
That's a good point. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Lon or Amanda?
Yeah, the key to that is that, with boards and commissions, obviously the city council, if there are issues with one of the members, the mayor and council can then remove that person from the board or committee. With the city council, the only ones that can do that are outside of the building. So accountability for that really has to become peer-to-peer. If you're going to apply those standards and expectations to yourselves, from the staff side, there really isn't much we can do, not much that legal could do to enforce those, but it would be amongst yourselves.
So it would be symbolic, but I think the point is good that, just as a matter of example, that we commit ourselves to adhering to the same rules that would apply to boards and commissions, even though they're, as you say, they're not enforceable by the staff. So, anyone have any other thoughts on that or objection to that, or?
I have none.
We can think about it and revisit it, but thanks for bringing that up. Other items that aren't marked on that page? Otherwise, we'll move on to number 3 under public services. Mr. Miller?
Yes, Your Honor. Item number 3, that's a proposed resolution for a change order with our civil plan, or our civil work. Out at the Eco Industrial Site. Upon the grading project, we came across some unstable soils in the entrance to the main drives. Everything highlighted here was determined by our contract engineer to be unstable. So what we're proposing to do is put some additional rock and some geomat down to stabilize the soil. When we're done, we'll have about 20 inches of rock and geogrid down there. The proposed cost to do that is just under $28,000. We're still way under budget for this portion of the project. The engineer's estimate for this portion was $780,000. With a change order, we'd be just under $623,000. So staff is recommending moving forward. It's cheap insurance for the long run of the project. So
It's better to do it right.
That's
and
right.
If it's within budget, I don't see an issue personally, but anyone have questions or? Yes, sir.
I'm just curious what GeoGrid is.
it, if you go look at it, it looks like black snow fence. And so you put that down on the soil first, and that acts as a soil stabilizer. And Jacob might know that maybe compared to adding 2 to 3 inches of rock, maybe to that. So it stabilizes the soil. And what you do after that, you go ahead and put rock over that, and so that creates a very stable base for your final grade. So,
Thanks.
yep.
Okay. Other questions on that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, under Parks, there's one item that's not marked. If anyone wants to discuss that, please speak up. Otherwise, we'll move on to engineering.
Good afternoon. This is just what Steve and the Indian Creek Watershed Management Authority just presented on. It's the request for the matching funds of $17,433. We have this budgeted in our engineering budget for $17,500, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Quick question.
Yes.
It says partial payment number 1, and it looks like the full amount that we would put forth. Am I missing something? Is there additional money we would add to this, or is it just like a payment in full?
I think that's a payment in full. I'll get with Mike on that
Okay.
and see if we need to get that corrected.
It's year 2, isn't it? Isn't this year 2?
Yes, but
We've
it's
been paying
annual payment.
Right, annual payment, second year of a 5-year commitment?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can get that corrected for the actual resolution on Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Perfect. Anything else under engineering that anyone wants to discuss? Okay, on to community development. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry about that. On the partial payments, we'll often do the partial payment even if it's your final payment. Number one, there could be a change order that comes in later on and you have to add another one. Or a lot of times we're holding back retainage, and that's actually the last final payment that goes back on your 5% retainage. Am I speaking too high here on this stuff? Okay, so that's why oftentimes it doesn't just say the final payment on there, because the final payment actually doesn't come back through council. We have to hold it for 30 days and then make that payment.
But on this, does that apply to this?
No, but that's
Yeah.
standard. I'm just saying on just about all of them,
Okay.
it does say a partial payment, so it's often going to be that way like that. We could maybe add a note to the comments rather than changing it to final payment and then have to go back and making a second final payment sometimes, Like we could say, this is anticipated to be the final payment, assuming nothing comes ahead in the next 30 days. Something like that to the wording.
Sure, I just wanted it to be clear.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be clear. I know, but
don't think that
it comes up with a lot of the payments on there, so I just wanted that to be clear that that's usually how we put it, and that's why.
But my question is, when it doesn't apply to the type of payment, why wouldn't we just say payment?
Well, I guess we could.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just standard. It's the way we make the payments. That's fine.
We can always improve how we do things.
Yes, the other payments I do the same thing. I have another final payment on, and it's called partial payment. That's why I want to bring it up. So.
Okay, well, thanks for explaining that. We'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
I'd rather be clear.
You have a question?
Yeah, I had a question while he was up here. Was this a 5-year commitment, and is this the same dollar amount that will be for each year?
I believe so.
So we are truly in the second year of a 5-year contract.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when it came forward, but I don't remember what year we are. I mean, it was. I think that's correct.
Oh, so
I'm not sure.
are you saying it is a partial payment?
No, I don't want to.
I think this was year 2 of it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I just want to make sure it was clear that we have a 5-year contract for this program.
I think that was the presentation we just heard.
What's that?
I think that was part of the presentation we
Right,
just heard.
right. I just didn't look it up myself before this came, so I'm sure they were right, but I can't.
Okay, I guess I'm going to ask staff, somebody to reach out to me for clarification on that. I'm not convinced on that, but that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay, under community development, anything on page 3 that is not marked, or page 4, there's nothing marked under community development for discussion individually?
Your Honor, if I might just note that 3 and 4 are setting dates for public hearing. One's the moving of the houses in the project on the east, moving the project and having the rezoning down off 9th Street. But the fourth one, I just want to note that this is setting the date for the public hearing on the airport land use and height overlay zoning, and I know there's been some correspondence regarding that. I'm just wanting to let you know that we're setting the date for the hearing, and we would do a formal presentation of the ordinance at that work session. I would ask if there's questions about that, if you want to feel free to reach out to me regarding that. I'd be happy to sit down with you. I know I sent you a 14 or 16-page ordinance, so if you have questions in between now and then and want clarification, please let me know. I think, well, I'll just leave it at that. So.
Is there, on the house relocations, is there a date or an approximate date yet or not?
Well, they'll want to make sure that the rezoning goes through. So I haven't heard anything specific at this point. So I'm assuming they'll wait till after the public hearing, and because there's 3 readings, they'll probably wait to see what happens.
So they won't set the date until the public hearing?
Unless someone else knows more about that move that's been involved directly with Joe, I don't know. But I would imagine that he's not going to set anything up until he has the zoning to provide for the redevelopment. So
I drove by there a couple of weeks ago. I don't even think I saw any footings over there yet to set the houses on.
no, well, they won't start anything until the zoning's
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a ways out.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
So based on this, the final reading, if it goes for all 3 readings, wouldn't be until October 5th, whatever that first meeting in October would be. So.
All right. Very good. The remainder of page 4, if anyone wants to discuss any of those items, I'll turn over the gavel to Mayor Pro Tem. None?
Seeing none, I'll move it back to the mayor.
That's quick.
Okay, under the regular agenda item, administrative services, we have every item marked for discussion, so.
Items
Yeah.
A1 and A2 are regarding budgeted transfers for fiscal year 2019-2020. Again, this was an administrative rule that was passed back in April, and we are required to do a resolution for every transfer. So I decided to split out the standard operating transfers that we typically do throughout the year or at fiscal year end for the standard operating stuff. And then for capital, we will continue to do those as separate resolutions at the time that we need to move the dollars when we're going to be spending. So A1 is for the operations related items and A2 is related for the capital items, and I did spell out the detail in the memo. In the operating memo, the only one that is actually different from the budget that I spelled out was hotel motel, and it was just based on how the hotel motel awards between non-city related and city related ended up. Didn't change the overall budgeted amount.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on those 2 items?
Okay, number 3.
So number 3 is the MOU for Victory Sports Center. It is the MOU based on the presentation that council received at the last meeting from Stephanie Phillips. What is being proposed by staff is the $300,000 cap of TIF incentive, which would be the equivalent of 80% up to 10 years. So this is just the MOU in order for the developer to move forward with financing with their bank. In a future meeting, we will come back to you with the actual development agreement, which will also include the amendment to the urban renewal plan, as well as a public hearing.
Okay, everyone clear on that? Any questions, concerns? Okay, that's a great project. Number 4?
The letter that's being distributed for council review is a proposed letter that I would sign that would go in support of a project for the redevelopment of the current YMCA site. The applicant is wanting to apply for brownfield tax credits from the state of Iowa. This is something that's fairly routine for the city to do. It does not create a financial obligations for the city, and the way the letter is constructed is actually fairly prescribed by the state. You have to provide a local determination for why you believe brownfield conditions may exist. So in this case, with it being a YMCA site that's more than 50 years old, there's a significant likelihood of asbestos, and you have a swimming pool that has had chlorine in it sitting over there for 50 years. So there's significant potential for items that would kick it into the brownfield arena. They also want to make sure that local review is being done, that the proposed project isn't going to run into roadblocks because they're coming straight to the state for something that doesn't meet the city's comprehensive plan or future land use plan, or would be problematic for the zoning districts for the area. So once you cover those boxes, then we sign off on that and go ahead and submit it to the state. It's a competitive program, a highly competitive program, so the earlier they can get it in and the more complete they can make it, the better off they are. The applicant and the real estate firm are in the audience in case council had any questions.
Okay. So I assume there aren't any obstacles or issues. It is consistent with the city's ordinances and comprehensive plan and all of that?
Yep. If anything, what they would be proposing would be a less intensive zoning than is currently in the area, and usually with the down zoning, it's not a problem. If they wanted to come in and take a commercial area and make it industrial, there'd be a concern. But if you're looking at things like commercial and want to do a residential component, that's typically not a problem.
But we have received enough detail to be able to make that determination. Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, it will require a rezoning as a part of the project, but what we've always envisioned is that property would be a higher density than the surrounding area to the north. It's kind of a transition area. There's commercial to the east and to the south, so it makes sense for a project.
Okay.
And this just starts off the project. There's still site plan review, rezoning. The council will have plenty of opportunities to actually see a project before it would become reality.
So this doesn't mean that the final project is approved. It's just we're supportive of the application for credits. Okay.
Yep, makes sense.
Anyone have questions either for Lon or for the developer who's here with us? And welcome, by the way. Would anyone? I mean, would it be okay to just have a brief synopsis of what the project is or what it's going to be?
That's at the pleasure of the council. So if you'd like it,
I think people are probably asking for that, so or thinking curious about what your plan is.
So, hi, my name is Todd Swift. I'm with the Oxbow Group. I reside in the Quad Cities on the Illinois side, right across the river over Interstate 80. So we're coming here today, just like Lon had said, we're asking for your support in submitting our application for the brownfield application. And what we've looked at in the short amount of time that we've had to look at this piece of land, we've had about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We've been looking in the area to put some senior living co-op space, living space. And then this property came about, and it's big enough to support not only the senior living co-op that we envisioned for that space, but also some market rate apartments. So you can see that we've laid this out on that piece of property where it does fit. It's two separate buildings, both around 50 units each, and we're looking at 3 stories.
Okay. Questions? You said market rate apartments.
That's correct. So there'd be a mix of efficiency 1 and 2 bedroom.
Okay. Did you say there would be some commercial or no?
Yeah, there could be on the market rate apartments on the first floor, a small amount.
Well, I would just encourage you to bring us your best.
Absolutely,
your best design and proposal, because as I mentioned before, we truly are interested in raising the bar with every new project, and look forward to seeing what your best product is.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And thank you guys all for doing your jobs, taking the time away from your family and being here, the council, and then all the staff too.
Yeah, and thank you for your interest in the project. It's kind of nice. It's kind of cool to see people from outside of Marion looking at the potential here and seeing that potential and helping us to provide more opportunities and options for residents here. So
Yeah, this location is perfect, especially with the businesses that are already there. So with the folks that would be living there, you're in walking distance to grocery store and other restaurants and stuff. So
thank you.
All right.
Yeah, Mayor Potem has a question.
I was just going to say the same thing. He jumped the gun on there on that one for me. I was just going to say thank you for your interest in Marion, and we'd love to take some of that Illinois business. So welcome to Marion. Welcome to Marion, and we look forward to working with you through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions for staff on that item, we'll move on to public safety.
Your Honor, Council, good evening.
Good evening.
We are due for replacement of our in-car cameras with our fleet. It involves 14 different vehicles. I'm actually going to have Sergeant Schamberger talk about the numbers a little bit here just because we are looking to switch vendors. Currently, we have installed the Panasonic Arbitrators is what the product is called. We want to switch to the Axon 2 fleet. Axon is what we currently use for our body cameras, as well as they are also mounted on our tasers. So there's a compatibility issue here that we think is going to be valuable to us as well. But I'm going to let Jason talk a little bit more about the actual numbers to you.
Good evening. Jason Schamberger, Operations Sergeant, Marion PD. I just want to give you a little background on our current system. Our current in-car camera system, like Lieutenant Knott said, is made by Panasonic, the Panasonic Arbitrator. All the video evidence from our in-car camera system is currently stored in-house on hard servers on the second floor. Our in-car camera system is an asset scheduled for replacement this year. The budget amount is $93,864. Like Lieutenant Knott said, the police department would like to change vendors from Panasonic to Axon and use their Axon Fleet 2 in-car camera system. I do have a photo of it. I can throw up here. So that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like right there. Like Lieutenant Knott said, we currently use Axon for our body-worn cameras and our tasers, and all the data from our body-worn cameras and our tasers. They used to be held in-house on servers as well, but since we purchased that product last fiscal year, all of that is now stored on their cloud-based system, which is found at evidence.com. So anytime we need video evidence from tasers or body cams, we simply log on to their server, to their website. We can access anything we want. We can share it with anybody who needs it, such as Linn County Attorney's Office, any attorney, any official from any other public safety entity. We can send it to them. We control how long that link's good for, and all that data is kept on their site as long as we want it there. We control if it disappears in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or we hold it indefinitely. And we currently have unlimited data storage with that. And I did check that today. We currently have 17 terabytes of body-worn data on their website, which is a ton of data that would have been held in-house. And that's just from body cameras. There's going to be a lot more data from our in-car cameras that's currently stored in-house that we would like to take from in-house and also add it to that evidence.com account. And that's where this new camera system comes in. By switching from Panasonic to Axon, we could keep all of our video evidence into one centralized, convenient location, which is on evidence.com. Personnel would need to go to simply one location, that website, to access whatever they want. Currently, you have to go to the website for body camera, or you have to use our in-house software to access in-car camera systems. If we maintained with Panasonic, we would still have to go to 2 different locations to access data, and we don't want to have to use two different platforms. We want to stick with one. This would involve entering into another agreement with Axon like we did with the body cameras. It would still be a 5-year agreement with Axon. We would still have unlimited data storage with Axon on evidence.com, so we're not restricting ourselves to any evidence by using we're not restricting ourselves to any storage capacity by using their online account. We can still store as much as we want and keep it online as long as we want. One benefit of switching to Axon is after year 3, we would get resupplied with brand new equipment, and that's free by being in this agreement. So whatever their latest camera is, which in 3 years will probably be an Axon Fleet 3, we would get all that stuff for free. They'd come out and reinstall all the latest cameras that they have into our squad cars, and we wouldn't pay anything for it since we're going to sign on with them. The cost for entering in this agreement is $117,860, but that's spread out over 5 years. That's not due all at once. The yearly expenditures for how much is due each year is included in your packet. You'll see the difference between year 1 and years 2 through 5 is $6,500 more, and that's simply equipment that we're going to need to purchase from Axon that is included in the agreement. The question that's going to come up is, what are we going to do with the $93,864 that we're budgeted for this fiscal year? Our plan is to use that money to pay Graybill Communications to do the install, because we're going to have to install this in 14 different squad cars, and then we would use the remaining amount to pay off years 1, 2, and 3 of that amount, of that 117, and then the remaining amount, which is just under $23,000 in years 4 and 5, we would budget that into those fiscal year budgets at that time, which would be in years 4 and 5 of the contract. And if anybody has any questions, I can answer any questions about the product, and I have Terrell here for any IT questions, or Lieutenant Knott.
Thank you. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Sergeant, can you tell us, by uploading the currently saved data that we have up to the cloud, what does that open up for freeing up space on the server, on our local server? And then number 2, if we separated from these folks in the future, how do we obtain our information in the cloud, so to speak? I would assume that we have rights to those.
Yes. Just with the body-worn camera, if we decide to switch from Axon to another, when we first trialed their body camera, if we did not go with them, they gave us a month to download all of our evidence to us. So we do have rights to that data, and they would give us time to download that. As far as how much space is going to be freed up in-house with our in-car camera system, I'd have to defer to Terrell on that.
So everything that we store in-house we'd have to keep because it's in that system that manages it for a while, just until retention takes that off. So we basically will keep what we have right now until we switch, until we don't have to keep it anymore.
Okay, so we wouldn't be moving our currently stored data to the cloud.
Right.
It would fall off on the retention, on the policy retention.
Correct.
Data. Okay, very good. Thank you.
One thing I wanted to add on to that is if whatever we have currently in-house, if something major comes up that we want to keep a video file, for example, we do have, I believe we have so much space of a la carte data, which means it can come from another vendor like Panasonic, that we can upload to the cloud and put a retention period on it for as long as we want. We don't have unlimited. We can't do that with everything unless we want to pay for it, but there is I think it's 10 or 12 gig or 20 gig that is included in our deal, and we can be selective as to what we want to upload and keep forever.
And we do label that stuff as we go to Councilman Sternad. If there's any type of major incident, domestic, anything that we believe is going to be of value later, we can go in, officers can go in and are expected to go in on their own, label it with the case number so that it can be easily retrievable down the road for court purposes.
Thank you. Sure, certainly seems favorable to move to one platform for both of those units. So it's kind of redundant to have 2 different vendors for that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, I certainly understand why you're recommending going to Axon from an efficiency standpoint. Like Randy says, going on one platform, makes a lot of sense and ease of use for the department. But I'm also, you didn't mention is there any difference in functionality or cost between Axon and Panasonic? I didn't see anything in the write-up, any mention of that, so are they in the same ballpark, in those 2 features?
The camera systems and the features are pretty comparable.
Okay.
One of the reasons why we didn't go with Panasonic body camera is because they're extremely expensive. Axon's a better deal when you're buying 50 cameras for officers. I think the Panasonic body camera was like $1,500 a pop, and the Axon was about $300 or $400. As far as their capabilities, they're pretty similar. Axon does have a web-based platform as well for their in-car camera system, but like I mentioned, we don't want to have two different platforms, so we could stick with Axon and use their cloud-based storage, but then we'd still have to go to two different places. And also the Axon in-car camera system will automatically sync up with your body-worn camera because it will sense it. So that will also become your car mic.
So in essence, back when we made the decision to go to Axon for the body cameras, it laid the path to go to the car cameras as well.
I knew this was coming out, and so I knew I had a year to play to figure out what was going on because I knew this was going to come online. So
makes sense.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Gadela.
Yep. So what do our peers use? Is anyone else in the area using Axon?
Yep. In this immediate metro area, no. Davenport uses Axon. Benton PD uses Axon. Iowa County is going to go to Axon. They called and they were inquiring about our body camera system, and they're going to switch to in-car cameras as well. Cedar Rapids and Lynn County use Panasonic.
But you feel confident based on Davenport and the other people's use of this that
yes,
even though Panasonic's more expensive, we'll get the same feedback and quality of what it is that you need to see.
Yes, I have a lot of confidence in this product. So.
And we have had great luck with the body cameras. They're crystal clear. The volume's always been good. We've never encountered any technical difficulties with them that I've heard of or I've been made aware of. So thus far with the body cameras, we've had great success with Axon.
And their service is really good. We had one officer get in a foot chase, dropped it in the stream, found it the next day. It was shot. I sent it to them. They pulled the video off, sent it back, never charged us a dime for it. So fixed the camera.
Awesome. Okay. And then what are we going to do with the Panasonics? Where those go?
Yeah. So there's a few options. There's been some interest from some other city departments to take those off our hands, and if no other city department ends up taking them, we would put them on GovDeals and auction them off and get whatever money we can from them. Or we could check with smaller agencies. So.
Okay.
We've had interest from both the fire department and the water department initially, so we just have to talk to them, and if we can repurpose them, great, all the better.
Fine.
I was thinking of actually about the school buses and that kind of thing, but it's no shortage of desire to have this kind of equipment. So, thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Comments? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, on to engineering. Every item is marked for discussion, so let's just start with number 1.
Yes, Your Honor. So previously we had discussed the speed reduction request to the DOT along 13 and 151. On the PowerPoint slide is the request that we put together based on the discussion we had with City Council. I then drafted the letter and sent it to the DOT with that request, and in your packet is their response to that request of not at this time. We have set up a meeting in the future to sit down and talk to them about this item and any other items and kind of get that dialogue going back again with the DOT. They're in a position where they don't want to be proactive. They want to be reactive and have the numbers to justify making the change before they're willing to make the change. So from staff's perspective, that's all that we can really do. If you guys want to politic or something, you can do that, but this is as far as we can take it at this time. So.
Okay. Yes.
Can we add this to our list of local control issues that we speak with the legislature about? It just seems like if this is something that, we want to have control over because we live here and we think we know better, there's another example of why we should have that control.
Okay. Number 2.
Number 2, so as you recall, we got really good bid numbers on our slip lining project, and so there's actually one line we're taking out that was a repeat and then adding several additional lineal foot to get the the liner in there. So it's a change order for $47,331.25 to add to that contract so we can get more lines done.
Okay, questions?
No.
Number 3.
Number 3, so this is the Tower Terrace project that was part of the Morris portion of it from Old Winslow to Lennon Lane, or not Lennon Lane. Yeah, it was Lennon Lane. And so at one time, basically what MediaCom was going to do, if you can see on the screen, let me change it to a pointer. Prior, what they were going to do is just go under Tower Terrace at this intersection and just go from pole to pole and go underground. And then underneath Tower Terrace, they were just going to go underground. What ended up happening is Alliant Energy decided that they would go ahead and wreck clear back here all the way to the north and similarly do more here. And so that meant that we would have poles out there that just have one utility on it if we only had them do what they originally planned. So they decided to do the same amount of work that Alliant did, and that's why the change order for additional money. It is doubling the contract, but we feel it's cleaning the area up and getting those lines so that they're not aerial and putting them underground. Yeah. So we're recommending approval of the change order.
Okay. Questions? Okay, the next several items, I'll turn over the gavel. Number 4.
Thank you. Number 4, sir.
All right, so the next one, there's the stairs that you can see. We haven't been able to pour a portion of the side path or trail next to the project out there because those stairs encroach into the right-of-way. So what we're proposing to do is actually take this end out and put stairs here and then a landing that comes out, and then we can get rid of that portion. There's some other modifications that we're doing as a part of that. It may only cost about $3,000, and then we have a little extra in case it doesn't quite fit, because we're going to design it in the field as we go. So it could only be $3,000. There's a contingency in there for like $1,200. So we're recommending moving forward with that. We did talk to the property owners. We've talked to the building department to make sure that it meets regulations.
Any questions? It is. Okay, thank you.
All right, number 5 through number 7. So on Thursday night, we will have a public hearing regarding runway 1735 reconstruction. This was bid as an alternate bid with HMA and PCC. The original engineer's estimate was $2.2 million. And so it has a late start date of 9/9/18 with 40 working days and $750 in liquidated damages per day. It goes from 23 foot to 60 foot wide. And again, like I said, it was an HMA PCC alternate bid. We did receive 4 bids. The first 2 were for asphalt. The second 2 were for concrete. And so we're recommending going with LL Pelling, which was the low bid. And we're recommending proceeding with A, B, and D. What D is some grooving to add extra traction for the planes when they land. We're not sure yet if we actually need that, but if it's determined that it's not needed as we do the research, then we can easily change order that out. It's easier to take it out of the contract than add it back in at a later date. So we're recommending proceeding with A, B, and D. And the Marion Municipal Airport Committee did meet last week and also recommended this to move forward.
Any questions for Mr. Barklow on that topic? Seeing none, we'll move on.
All right, the next one. So we bid the fire site drainage package, and this was because of the water table and the soils on site, so that we could get that site ready. A separate package is out for bid right now to actually build the fire station. And so as you recall, we got 5 bids for that. The low bid was from Abode Construction at 60% of the engineer's estimate. So this is just approving the contract and bond.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next one? No, you're good. Okay, very good. All right, we're moving on to community development. Thanks, Mr. Parkman. Okay, so the question is will there be any discussion on the unmarked item here approving the issuance of building permits for lots 1 through 3?
Not unless there's questions.
Oh, okay, very good. Seeing none, at this time I'll relinquish the meeting back over to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, number 2.
Yes, the item starred is approving the Central Corridor review for the multi-tenant commercial building at the Tomaso's building at the 1204. I think the council has received, we've included quite a bit of information on that. The Planning Commission has reviewed it and is recommending approval. They did apply some conditions to that there would be some exterior windows placed on the back or on the back side of the property, and he has done that in his revised illustrations, which I think. So this illustration here is the north side. So there's a rear entry, and then there's the two windows that have been placed. There's actually 2 windows on the east side as well, and then you can see the other elevations as well. But as we've went through this project, there's been changes requested along the way, and Mr. Peterson's been accommodating in those and pushed back a little bit, which is totally expected on some of them. So we're satisfied with what's being proposed. It's going to be a nice building. There were some, in the illustrations also, there was some fencing material that's being placed along the west side of the property line, consistent with the overlay zone that provides for some separation from cars that are parked adjacent to a sidewalk and a side yard. There was a request to put a limestone cap on the top of those. They're kind of a brick column, and so he's accommodated that. There was also a request earlier in the review process to kind of outline or identify the rear entry a little better, and there was a little canopy put over that and a little awning put over that with some stone features. So staff's recommended approval, and after, I should say, the Planning Commission is recommending approval, and as has HPC and the Uptown District. So, any questions on it? Pretty lengthy staff report, unless there's more information I desired. I wasn't going to walk through it all.
Yes, sir.
What is the? Do you know what? Just off the top here, I don't see a line here, but what is the distance between that and the adjacent property to the east?
I want to say it's like 3 feet. It's not much.
Okay.
Which isn't untypical. And you can see, actually, it's probably a little bigger than that.
Could you put it under the overhead? So I'm just curious what specifically you're asking about.
So this is the detail of the fencing that was identified. So there'll be some bricks with some fencing that will go in between, and this will be along the. Let me put this. This will be 12th Street. You can see the parking is going to come up next to the sidewalk, and within the zoning, there's a requirement. There's a setback from parking to the sidewalk, so that we've all been in an area where they park up and they park over the curb, and then the bumper sticks over. So what we've identified is we had a setback of 5 feet, but an alternative to that is they could come up closer if they maintain some kind of barrier between the walkway and the parking, similar to between the City Hall and the library, the limestone walls with the fencing. So that's kind of what we've used as a go-by in that situation. So that provides that area to be, the parking to come up a little closer. But it does create the barrier.
Go back to the question on how much space between the east wall of the building and is it the Royer building next door?
Yeah, and as I go blinder, my old age, I'm trying to find it on the illustration.
6.5?
I can't either. You guys are probably.
As I get there and I can't read the street names.
Yeah. I don't see it specifically identified, but based on the proportions, it looks like it's between, I can find out for Thursday, but it's probably between 3 and 5 feet.
That's fine. I was just curious. I was just looking at a couple spec items here, so not a big deal.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I will point out too, and you know, I'll point this out just because I think it's important to note, when we did the corridor overlay design, similarly to the parking, and there are specific items that we place in here for design aesthetic. That parking lot one, the barrier, that's something that is that's a detail, but if you recall walking around in other communities, it's a detail that you only notice when you're walking around and someone's bumpers over the sidewalk. So that's a detail that we did provide in that zoning. Also, if you notice in this illustration here, you'll see the two barriers. They're representing that to block that for people to get back in there. They create, and that's a part of the zoning too. If you have a gap in the building facade between buildings, it's required that a 4-foot barrier be established there, and we do require it to be architecturally significant. There's a pound of plywood up there to keep people from getting back into those areas. So that's a very specific item associated with the zoning. So
We're not creating an alley.
yeah, creating dark spaces. The police department does not.
Okay. Makes sense. Yes.
So is
Thanks.
that gap between the buildings, is that on this building's property?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And it's necessary to get back and actually construct and put up the fiber cement board on the side.
Is there a reason why it wasn't built up against the other building, like the rest of the row?
Not that I'm aware of. They may not have been able to negotiate the
Party wall.
easement or the party wall. And honestly, a new building, old building, it may create a whole host of issues. And I'm sure they're already required to ensure appropriate fire separation and such. So I think it might have been a lot easier to do that years ago, opposed to the way it is now. So.
And then, so there's fencing so you can't get back there, but if it was wide enough, it could be technically another alley. And I know if we extend the art in the alley behind that building, it's another potential. If it's 3 feet, then obviously not.
Yeah, I don't think the way it's proposed is that there's a
Not
desire
wide
to have
enough.
people back in that area. No. I think they're building it as tight as they can and still maintain the ability to work and construct.
Outdoor seating? No. 4 feet, 4 feet's probably not enough. Okay.
Outdoor standing.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Questions on that one?
No, that's good.
I think it's come a long ways. And
I would
it's
agree.
good to know that everyone is on board, from Uptown to P&Z to you guys to.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Do you know what's the timeline for seeing construction move on this?
I don't know right offhand, but I'm assuming that it's going to be very quick. They're ready to roll. We've tried to be as expedient as we can in our review process as well.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I had just a quick follow-up. I don't know, and I don't want the details of this. Will that concrete be able to be partially used, or will it completely be tore out and redone?
I honestly don't know.
You don't know? Okay, very good. Thanks.
No, I can.
Sidewalk?
What's that?
The existing sidewalk?
No, I think he's meaning
The concrete that's the foundation that's there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Items 3 through 6 are not marked for discussion. That while Tom is standing there, if anyone has any questions on those?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir.
That was amazing.
Library.
Good evening, Mayor and
Welcome.
Council. Thank you. Last Thursday, the Library Board approved, pending legal review, the contract for our architect, Ingberg Anderson. The cost for that contract is $1,308,000. I think, is the final cost of that. That cost is included in our overall $18 million budget. So as this is a CIP project, we are bringing that forward for council approval. We've been going back and forth with Kara the last couple of days. According to Kara and the architect, very standard, just legal things that they are working out, but we will have that final contract, any changes, before we get here on Thursday. Just wanted to make sure you guys didn't have any questions.
No more questions? Yes.
A quick one. Was this, you said it's included in the overall ticket price. Was it on budget like what you estimated?
Actually, all of our estimated costs right now are coming from the architect. What I can tell you is that his fee right now, based on all of the work that we've done with him up until this point, is a lot less than market rate for a architect. Most of the estimates are between 8 and 10% of the overall construction cost, and he's given us some discounts based on the work that he's been doing with us along the way. So we're at 7.25%, which is a really good deal based on the research that I've done.
Thank you.
Answered my question right there.
Okay.
In addition, I just wanted to let you all know that we will also have a receive and file on the agenda for Thursday for a request for qualifications for construction manager. Because we're just doing requests for qualifications right now, that's a receive and file for council. Once we get those in and we start looking at the cost, we'll bring that contract back for approval at that time as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And that appears to be the last item on our agenda. If there's nothing else anyone wants to discuss, we will adjourn the meeting and we'll see everyone on Thursday. Thank you all.